Dear participants, welcome to the SWAYAM course. Today is the week 3rd and lecture number 3, and our course name is Introductory Animal Physiology. Module name is Muscle Physiology, and today we are going to discuss the lecture name is Physiology of Skeletal Muscle. So today we will see what are the physiology there for the skeletal muscles. Myself, Dr. Mukesh Kumar Bharti, Assistant Professor in the Department of Veterinary Physiology and Biochemistry, Faculty of Veterinary and Animal Sciences, Banaras Hindu University. So first we will see what are the things we will see today in this topic. So overview of the today's lecture is that we will see means first overall what is the function of muscles. Means not specific, we will see overall what is the function, then we will see what are the types of muscle is there, different types are muscles, then we will see what are the composition of mainly the skeletal muscle, and then we will see regarding the ultra structure of skeletal muscles, means how muscles are made up of what units are there, then what are the contractile elements are there in the skeletal muscles, means how contraction has been taking place, what are the important proteins are there that help in the contraction of the skeletal muscles. Then we will see contraction and relaxation of the skeletal muscles, and finally we will see what is called as a neuromuscular junctions, how impulse is transmitted from the nerve to the muscle through the junction, that is called as a neuromuscular junction. So all these things we will discuss in this today's lecture. So let us start with the things that what is the function of muscle. So if muscle means terms comes in our mind, first and foremost function what means we can remember is the most important function of the muscle is the locomotion. Motion means the movement of the body, that is called as a locomotion. So how we are means moving, or the how animals are moving, the main function, main part which help in locomotion is the muscle. Second important part, that is the you can say locomotion is the visible function of the muscles, means we can see that okay, movement is taking place with the help of muscles. But other than visible functions, very important functions also there, that is invisible, but that we cannot see through the eye, but muscle play very important role in that one. So what are the important invisible function is there, that is there in the respiration. We know that very important muscles are there that help in the respiration, that is the chief inspiratory muscle, as we know that it is a diaphragm. Okay, in case of the mammals, diaphragm is the chief inspiratory muscles. Then other than that, several means inspiratory and expiratory muscles are there that help in the respiration. Then other than that respiration, another important function is the swallowing and the digestion. Means muscles help in the digestion process also, and it also help in the agglutination or the swallowing. Then it have very important role in the parturations. When animal parturate, at that time muscle play very important role, because relaxation and contraction of the muscles takes place at the time of the parturation. Then the blood and lymph circulation. So whatever the blood is circulated, earlier means we have discussed in the hemodynamics that muscle play very important role in the vascular system also, and then also it help in the generation of the body heat. So means during when we feel cold, at that time shivering will takes place, and here also muscle play very important role. So these 5 functions which we have means I told that respiration, digestion, parturition, blood and lymph circulation, and generation of body heat, these are called as a invisible functions, but it have very muscle have very important role here, but locomotion is called as a visible function of the muscle. Then what are the properties of muscle? Muscle have 4 very important properties. One is called as a contractility, it means ability to shorten, if muscles should have this type of property. Then second is that excitability, means capability to receive or respond to a stimuli. So if any kind of stimuli will come to muscle, it must be means excite, so that is called as a excitability. Third is the extensibility, means ability to stretch out. If some kind of stretching is required, then muscles should be stretched out, that is the stretchability. And then last one is called as elasticity, means ability to return to the original shape. Once the extension will takes place, then it must come to the original shape. So that is the elasticity. So these are the 4 very important property of a muscle. Then Types of muscles means what are the types of, there are mostly the three types of muscle. One is called as a skeletal muscle, second is called as a cardiac muscle, and third is the smooth muscles. Skeletal muscle, smooth muscle, and the cardiac muscle. Each have a different property. Skeletal muscles mostly help in the movement, locomotion. The main muscle help in the locomotion is the skeletal muscle. Smooth muscles have main function in the visceral organ, means during the digestion process, mostly it help in the digestion process. And then cardiac muscle found mostly in the heart. So it is mostly found in the heart. So there are three important types of muscles is there in the body: cardiac, skeletal, and the smooth muscles. So there are the certain differences there between the skeletal, smooth, and the cardiac muscle. So we can see in case of the skeletal muscle, this is called as a striated. Later on we will see why it is called as striated. So the skeletal muscle is called as a striated, whereas also the cardiac muscle is also striated. So skeletal and cardiac muscle is striated in appearance, whereas the smooth muscle is non-striated, means there is no, means dark and light band is there in the smooth muscle, whereas it is present in the this skeletal as well as in the cardiac muscles. Then skeletal muscle found between the bones, and these smooth muscles found in mostly in the blood vessels and the GI tract, and cardiac muscle, as we know that it is mostly found in the heart muscles. When we say about the voluntary or involuntary, we can see that this skeletal muscle is called as a voluntarily muscles. Means voluntarily muscles means voluntarily we can means let them contract or relax. Okay, so that is called as a voluntarily. Now the smooth muscle and cardiac muscle is called as involuntary muscle. Involuntary muscles means we do not have the control over that. If they want to contract or relax, they will contract or relax according to their will. Okay, we do not have any kind of control over that one. So that is called as a involuntary. So smooth muscle and cardiac muscle are involuntary type. Then we will see the mitochondria percentage. We will see that it is very high in case of the cardiac muscle. Cardiac muscle have very high percentage of mitochondria, around 30 to 40% of the mass, whereas the skeletal muscle have very few mitochondria, around 2 to 5% only. Then if you see how the resistant to the fatigue, this skeletal muscles will be easily fatigued because they have working very hard, so they will fatigue very easily, whereas this smooth muscle and the cardiac muscle are fatigue resistance, means they have the very high power to resist the fatigueness. Position of the nucleus, we will see that this skeletal muscle is multinucleated, whereas the smooth muscle and cardiac muscle are uninucleated, means one nucleate per cell will be found in the smooth muscle as well as cardiac muscle, whereas the skeletal muscle will have the multinucleate, means in one cell there will be more than one nucleus. Then we will see means little difference between what is the difference between the red and the white muscles. Red muscles means have the smaller fibers, whereas the white muscles have the larger fiber of the great strength and contractions. This red muscles will produce low amount of force of higher endurance, means they red muscles means have the higher endurance capacity, means they can resist for the longer duration of time, whereas the white muscle, although they have the high means quick contraction will takes place, but they will not persist for longer duration of time. So they will produce means high amount of force but shorter duration of time. This red muscle will contract slowly, but this white muscle will contract very fast. They have a high oxidative phosphorylation capacity because of the presence of high amount of mitochondria, and they have a high anaerobic glycolysis. White muscles have a high anaerobic glycolysis, that is why they get fatigued very easily. Fibers contain large amount of myoglobin, that is why it has red in appearance, and they have a very less amount of myoglobin. Myoglobin is called the red pigment. This red type of muscles adapted for the prolonged or continued muscle activity. If means someone want to means go for the means longer duration of means running, they that kind of animals or that kind of person will have the more amount of red muscles, and they are means adapted for the shorter duration of means run, they have the more white muscles. So that is the basic means difference between the red muscle and the white muscle fiber. Then we will see what are the composition of skeletal muscle. If means composition we will see that water component is around 75% in the muscles, whereas the solid is only 25%, around 75% is water. Among the solid, they have the organic constituent and the inorganic constituents. Organic constituents consist of the proteins proteins like actin, myosin and nebuline. So many other proteins are there. Then other organic substances are there, like carbohydrates are there, cholesterols are there, then other things are there that is present in the skeletal muscles. So that is the composition of the skeletal muscles. Now we will see what are the ultra structure of the skeletal muscles, how the skeletal muscle is made up of, what are the components are there. So it is said that there are hundreds of individual skeletal muscles are found in the domestic animals, and large skeletal muscle is composed of hundreds of thousands of individual muscle cells, that is called as a myocytes. So one muscle cells, individual muscle cells is called as a myocytes, and these fibers are individually wrapped in their own sheath of connective tissue, that is called as a endomysium. So here again three important layers are there: endomysium, then perimysium, and finally the epimysium. This is called as endo, this is peri, and this is the epimysium. So final covering is the epimysium and innermost is the endomysium. Then we will see what is the subcellular, means inside the cell what are the, means how these muscle cells are made up of, that is called as subcellular organization of the skeletal muscles. So mature skeletal muscle cells, also called as a myocytes, contains the multiple nuclei. Already means when we have seen the difference at that time, see that skeletal muscles are made up of multiple nuclei. One cell have the multiple nuclei. Here 80% of the cytoplasm of skeletal muscle is occupied by the cylindrical structures, that is called as a myofibril. So one skeletal muscle is made up of many myofibrils, and each myofibril's diameter is around 1 to 2 micrometer. So by naked eye we cannot see the individual fiber, but through microscope we can observe the individual fiber diameter. The cells of both the skeletal and the cardiac muscles are striated in appearance because of the presence of alternating light and dark band all along the length of each cell. I told that striated muscle and cardiac muscle is called as striated muscles. Why it is called as striated muscles? Because of the presence of alternating light band and dark band. So light bands contains the actin filaments. It is also called as a I band. Why it is called I band? I band means I means isotropic to the polarized light. So it is isotropic to the polarized light, that's why it is called as a I band. I band is also called as a light band. Then another one is called as a dark band. Dark band is mostly contains the myosin filament, and it is also called as a band. A band means anisotropic. Earlier one it was isotropic, this is called as anisotropic to the polarized light. So because of the presence of this light and dark band, the muscle appears the striated in appearance. So you can see here the means this is the light zone and this is the dark zone. Okay, dark is called as an A band, whereas the light is called as a I band. And in between I band, between the I band, okay, light band, there is very important structure is there, that is called as a Z disc. Here you can see, here also between the I band there is important structure that is called as Z disc, and between two Z discs one very important structure is there, that is called as a sarcomere. So this sarcomere which is present between two Z discs, and these Z discs are present in the light band. So this sarcomere is called as a structural and functional unit of muscle fiber. So if someone will ask what is the called as a sarcomere, it is a structural and functional unit of muscle fiber, and it is present between two Z discs. And you can see between the dark band, then another structure is there, that is called as a M line. So these are the different structure which is present in a striated muscle fiber. Then this band gives this striated in appearance. When they examine with the electron microscope, the myofibril exhibit a serial repetition structural unit, that is called as a sarcomere. Already I have explained that sarcomere is called as a structural, called as a basic contractile, structural and functional unit of the muscle fiber, and it is delineated by the Z disc, means it is present between the two Z discs. So each sarcomere contains full A band in the center and one half of the two I band. Okay, complete A band, and then half of the I band. So that is the sarcomere. So Z, another line is there, Z line. It is taken from the German word meaning the band in between, that is found between the I band. So between the light band, one important one is there, that is called as a Z line. In the center of A band, means dark band, another important structure is there, that is called a H zone, that is brighter in color, and mostly means each muscle fiber contains several or hundreds of thousands myofibrils, and each myofibrils consists of 1500 myosin filament and 3000 actin filament in the ratio of 2:1 for the actin and myosin filament. So actin filament are more in number compared to the myosin filament. Then another structure is there, that is in the skeletal muscle, that is called as a sarcoplasm and the sarcoplasmic reticulum. Sarcoplasmic reticulum is just like a endoplasmic reticulum which are present in the cell. So in place of endoplasmic reticulum in the muscle cytoplasm, another structure is there, that is called as a sarcoplasmic reticulum. So this sarcoplasmic reticulum is like a smooth endoplasmic reticulum or other cells found in close association with the inner aspect of the cell membrane. So what is the function of this sarcoplasmic reticulum? This sarcoplasmic reticulum store the calcium, and whenever the requirement is there for the muscle contraction, this calcium will be released from this sarcoplasmic reticulum and it will reach to the muscle for the contraction. So that is the function of the sarcoplasmic reticulum. Then in this, it also have a T-tubular like structure, and this T-tubule like structure help in the transmission of impulse from the outside of the cells to the inside. So through this T-tubule only the transmission, whatever the impulse is coming to the outer surface of the muscle cell, it will go inside the cell only through this tubule. So that is also very important structure in the muscles. Now we will discuss what are the contractile elements are there in the muscles. The contractile elements are mostly the actin, tropomyosin, troponin and the myosin protein. So these are the contractile protein which are present in the muscles which help in the muscle contraction. So first we will discuss regarding the actin, or the actin is also called as a thin filament, whereas the myosin is also called as a thick filament. So actin is composed of three protein, that is called as actin, tropomyosin and the troponin. Actin is made of three protein, actin, tropomyosin and troponin. So first we will see regarding the actin. Actin is the chief constituent of thin filament, and initially it is found in a globular form, that is also called as a G form, and once the polymerization will takes place, after the polymerization it form the F actin. F actin is the actually backbone of the actin filament. So G actin when polymerized, it will form in a fibrous form, that is called as a F actin. F actin is a double stranded protein molecule, act as a backbone of the actin filament, and it has a two strands of spiral in a helix manner, and they are just spirally one over the another, and each molecule attached to each molecule of G actin, one molecule of ADP is found, and this ADP is said as a active site for the binding of the muscle myosin filament. So cross bridge formation, later on we will see during the muscle contraction one cross bridge formation will takes place. So this, it is believed that this ADP molecules act as active sites where the cross bridge formation will takes place, and then the muscle contraction will proceed. So that is the how actin filament looks like. Then another protein is there, that is called as a tropomyosin. The actin filament also contain another protein, that is called as a tropomyosin. Tropomyosin molecule wrapped spirally around the sides of the actin filament, and what is the important function of tropomyosin is that during the resting state it lie over the top of the active sites of the actin strands, so the attraction between the actin and myosin filament cannot occur. Attraction between the actin and myosin, it is prevented by the tropomyosin in the resting state. So that is why resting state no contraction takes place. Once the some kind of stimulus is coming to the muscle, then only this tropomyosin which is lie over the active side, this get side, and then actin will bind with the myosin and the cross formation will takes place. So that is the important function of the tropomyosin protein. Then third is called as a troponin protein. Troponin is attached intermittently along the side of the tropomyosin molecule, and these are the actual complex of three loosely bound protein. This troponin is made up of three loosely bound protein. One is called as a troponin I, troponin T and troponin C. Troponin I have a strong affinity for the actin, troponin T have a strong affinity for the tropomyosin, and troponin C have a strong affinity for the calcium ion. So, it is made up of three important subunits: troponin I, troponin T, and troponin C. So, that is the actin filament. Now we will discuss regarding the myosin filament. Myosin filament also called as a thick filament, and myosin filament is composed of multiple myosin molecule having molecular weight of around 4,80,000. So, that's why it is called as a thick filament. Each myosin molecule consists of a double headed globular region joined to a tail. Okay, it have a head region and it have a tail region. Here you can see it have a globular head region and also it have a tail region. So, this is called as a tail region and this is the head region. So, one end of each of these 10 is a tail is a folded bilaterally into globular polypeptide structure, that is called as a myosin head, and alongside they have a tail. So, what is the peculiarity of myosin head? Myosin head peculiarity have a ATPase like activity, means it will lyse the ATP. So, it will lyse the ATP means when the ATP will be lysed, then the energy will be released and that energy will be utilized for the muscle contraction. So, that kind of properties occurs in the myosin head. You can see here the myosin head have a cross bridge formation will takes place with the actin filament with the myosin head. We will see how the calcium regulated skeletal muscle contraction will takes place. Means I told that calcium is very essential for the muscle contraction. So, if you remember, I told that tropomyosin is remain or lie over the active sites of the actin filament. During resting state, this tropomyosin cover the active sites, but when the action potential will reach to the membrane, then through the T tubule, then this calcium will bind to the troponin C component. Calcium which is coming from the sarcoplasmic reticulum, it will bind to the troponin C component of the troponin, and then when it will bind to the troponin C component, then the conformation change will takes place in the F actin, means whatever the tropomyosin was there, that will moved side from the active site of the actin filament, and now the active site is exposed to bind with the actin filament. Now, the actin filament will bind with the myosin head and the cross bridge formation will takes place and the muscle contraction will takes place in this manner. So, in this way the muscle will contract. So, calcium is coming, then this calcium will bind to the troponin C component of the troponin, then the conformation change will takes place in the actin filament, like tropomyosin will move and then that removes the active site, that expose the active site to bind with the myosin head, and once the myosin head will bind to the actin filament, then the cross bridge formation will takes place and the contraction of muscle will takes place. So, that is the how calcium regulated skeletal muscle contraction will takes place. Another one important theory is there, that is called as a sliding filament theory of muscle contraction. Sliding filament theory of muscle contraction. Here this theory says that the sarcomere will shorten because of the actin filament will slide over the myosin filament. So, here actin filament will slide over the myosin filament. So, myosin filament will remain static, only the actin filament will move over the myosin filament. So, here what is happening, the actin filament are actually pulled inward toward the M line by the myosin, and because of their repetitive attachment and release of the myosin head. So, myosin filament in the center of the sarcomere is believed to remain stationary, they will not move during both contraction and elongation. Here only the actin will move, myosin filament will not move, only the actin will move. So, that is called as the actin filament will slide over the myosin. So, that is why name has been given the sliding filament theory of muscle contractions. So, once the contraction has been takes place, earlier I have described that how calcium regulated contraction will takes place. So, suppose contraction has been takes place, now how the relaxation will takes place, how muscle will relax. So, muscle relaxation will only takes place once the whatever the calcium which came from the sarcoplasmic reticulum, if calcium will be taken back by the sarcoplasmic reticulum, then the this relaxation will take place. Means once the calcium will be taken back, then again the tropomyosin will cover the active sites on the actin filament, and then the no means attachment between the actin and myosin will takes place, and now the relaxation of muscle will takes place. So relaxation will takes place once the calcium will be uptaken by the means sarcoplasmic reticulum, and once it has been taken out, then the relaxation of the muscle will takes place. Now, in brief we will discuss what is called as the neuromuscular junctions. From the name itself, it suggests neuromuscular, means it is a connection between the nerve and the muscles. So, between the nerve and muscle, one important junction is there, that is the very important for the contraction and relaxation of the muscles. So, whatever the information is coming from the nerve, it goes to the muscles via this junction, that is called as a neuromuscular junction. So, it is a localized region of communication between the axon fiber and the muscle fibers, that is called as a neuromuscular junctions. So, this junction, if you see the ultrastructure, this junction at a approximately midpoint of the muscle fiber, and the region of the muscle fiber is known as a end plate. Okay, the muscle side it is known as a end plate. So, between the nerve and the muscle, small gap is there. It is not closely attached with the nerve, and muscle are not closely attached. There is certain gap between the nerve and muscle is there. So, that gap is approximately 50 nanometer wide gap is there between the nerve and the muscles, and this gap is called as a synaptic cleft. And importance of this synaptic cleft is there is that whatever the information is coming from the nerve, some means neurotransmitters are released in the synaptic cleft, and then it will bind to the receptor which are present on the muscle side. Post synaptic receptors are present on the muscle side. So, this neurotransmitter will bind with the receptors present on the muscles, and then the contraction will takes place. So, some important terminology there, the one is called as a presynaptic. Presynaptic means the structure and events occurring within the axon. Within the axon, whatever the structure is there, that is called as a presynaptic. Another is called as a postsynaptic, means the events which are occurring in the synaptic cleft of the muscle cells, that is called as a postsynaptic, means receptors are present in the postsynaptic only, means the muscle side only. So, that is the postsynaptic, and in between some cleft is there where the neurotransmitter are released from the axon, and it coming into the cleft, and then it bind to the receptor, and the muscle contraction process will start. So, what are the sequence is taking place at the neuromuscular junctions? So, binding, once the acetylcholine will be released from the nerve axon, it will bind to the postsynaptic membrane, and that creates a local positive potential depolarization in the muscle membrane, that is called as a end plate potential, and this end plate potential should be of sufficient quantity to excite a muscle fiber. So, it is a local positive potential on the postsynaptic membrane resulting from the entry of sodium via the acetylcholine receptor channel, and this end plate potential initiate an action potential that spread along the muscle membrane, and that lead to the excitation contraction coupling, and once this will spread to the muscle, then the excitation contraction will takes place. So, this is the excitation contraction coupling. So, here I will describe in brief that whatever the things already we have discussed, now I will summarize it ki how excitation contraction coupling is taking place. So, once the any kind of a stimulus will come from the nerve, it will come to the through this neuromuscular junction into the postsynaptic membrane to the muscles. Here what will happen, once the stimulus will come, now the muscle will be stimulated and calcium will be released from the sarcoplasmic reticulum. Now, this calcium will bind to the troponin C component, and the tropomyosin which were present on the active site of the muscle, this will be get conformation change will takes place. So, the tropomyosin will leave the active site exposed. Now, the active site will bind to the myosin head, and the cross bridge formation will takes place, and the muscle contraction will takes place. So, in this way, this is the summary of whatever we have discussed. The neuromuscular junction is the actual summary how excitation and contraction is taking place. Excitation is coming in the form of a stimulus from the nerve, and then how the contraction is taking place in the muscle. So, in this way we have discussed so far, means what are the types of muscles is there, how, what is the ultrastructure of muscle fiber, then what are the contractile elements are there in the form of actin and myosin filament. Then we have seen why muscles is, especially the skeletal and cardiac muscle, is called as striated because of the presence of the light and dark band. And then we have seen brief about the neuromuscular junction, means how the impulse are coming from the nerves and how the excitation and the contraction is taking place in the muscles. So, that is the end of the today's class. Thank you.